from different parts of the world. My name is Pragati and I work as Communications Officer of GCAP and I'm based in India. Before we begin, I would like to share a quick note about interpretation. The interpretation is available in English, French, and Spanish. If you would like to listen in French or Spanish, please click the interpretation icon that is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Hope all of you have found out the interpretation icon that look like, say, a tiny globe that is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So I think everyone has found that. Then please select your preferred language. If you want to listen, preferred language may be Spanish or French. And if you want to listen to English version, when our speakers are speaking in French or Spanish, please choose English. And you can also choose mute original audio if you would like to hear only the interpreted audio. And now hope all of you have found the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen. And if you experience any technical difficulties with the interpretation, please let us know in the chat and we will be very happy to assist you. And now I would request Ingo and Patricia to explain it in French and Spanish respectively. Thank you. Over to Ingo and Patricia.
OK. En français, on a la traduction en français, en espagnol aussi. Mais pour choisir la traduction, il faut choisir le bouton en bas à droite. Je ne sais pas c'est quoi écrit pour vous, traduction, où il y a un globe. Il faut choisir français là-bas. Si vous avez des problèmes, écrivez dans le chat, s'il vous plaît. Et j'espère que ça marche bien. OK, now, Patricia, please. Yeah.
Sí, buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Tenemos traducción al español. Pueden elegir el icono en la parte inferior a la derecha, un icono en forma de globo o planeta, y seleccionar el idioma de español, así como el idioma de su preferencia, si fuese otro. Si tuvieran cualquier problema técnico, pueden escribir en el chat que vamos a estar atentos a resolverlo. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you so much, Ingo. Now let's begin. On behalf of the Global Call to Action Against Poverty, GCAP, it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to this side event of the High Level Political Forum 2026. The title of the event is After the World Social Summit, Universal Social Protection Floors as a Framework for a Sustainable Future. Let me share a couple of lines about GCAP. GCAP is a global alliance of civil society organizations and social movements working across 66 countries to end poverty, inequality, and advance social, economic, and climate justice. We also work through the constituency groups of youth, women, and feminists, and the Social Justice Task Force, with a membership of around 18,400 civil society organizations. And at GCAP, we believe that sustainable development can only be achieved when the voices and rights of people, especially those who are the most marginalized, are at the center of decision making. And today in this side event, we are delighted to have representatives from UN agencies, civil society organizations, grassroots movements, academia, and communities. We are also proud that this event is being organized together with 23 partners from across the world. And the partnership reflects our shared commitment to strengthening universal social protection and advancing social justice. Today's discussion brings together distinguished speakers from international organizations, regional institutions, civil society, and communities. They will share their perspectives from Asia, Africa, and Latin America and the Caribbean on how the commitments made at the World Social Summit can be translated into impactful actions. This event is part of the ongoing economic justice mobilization, that brings together civil society and social movements to advocate for economic systems that put people before profit and uphold human rights and dignity. We welcome all of you again, and we look forward to a rich and very engaging discussion. And it is now my pleasure to invite Mr. Ingo Rees, Director of GCAP, who will set the context of our discussion, moderate the session, and also share the program overview. Over to you, Ingo. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Pragati. Also, very warm welcome from my side from the HLPF in New York. So I see some colleagues like Bhakta, also Mariama and some others who are here in New York. So we have a very intense time with a lot of meetings, events. Of course, voluntary national reviews are going on. I heard yesterday from DR Congo, from Tunisia, also social protection was mentioned there or included. So as you might have seen, the final draft of the ministerial declaration for the HLPF just came out. I didn't really have time to read much, but the Doha political declaration was at least mentioned and welcomed. So let's hear today maybe more. So we are now about 8 months after the World Social Summit, or officially the World Summit for Social Development, the second, from 4th to 6th November in Qatar, in Doha, in last year. So that is about 8 months ago, and we thought it's a good time to see how the decisions from Doha are actually implemented. And we focus mainly on the social protection part, but also on the financing of social services. So it's a bit, let's say, broader, but with a focus on social protection. So we had big hopes in the World Social Summit, as we call it in short, because it was the first after 30 years, after 1995 in Copenhagen. And we thought it could become a summit on inequality with a, excuse me, can you mute? That's nice, thank you. So with the extreme inequalities, or as we say now, inequality emergency, with the billionaires and even one trillionaire taking more and more wealth, while the poor part of the population is either not getting more and even getting less part from the wealth created. We thought that would be really an opportunity. In this sense, we were disappointed, but to see the positive during these difficult geopolitical times, there is good content in the political declaration. And one of that is on social protection, which was mentioned 25 times in total.
26.
Of course, yeah, this is our, I counted it twice. But anyway, so it is showing a strong commitment of governments. There's also qualitative content. We will hear more about that today. Basically, just to give you see the program here. I will not mention all, but we will hear from ILO on social protection, but also with a focus on what does it mean for the national level, then also from a civil society perspective, and then we will also hear from the financing, the connection to the F54 summit, but also then the impact at the national level. We have Philippines here as an example, and then also we will do the connection to the impact of climate change and also the debt crisis. So, but to start, we want to hear voices from communities, people's voices and the situation. So we as GCAP and our members work with local communities, with marginalized and discriminated groups. And I'm grateful for the Asia Dalit Rights Forum, ADRF, that they work with communities in 4 countries, in Nepal, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. And they have collected voices from some people about the situation, but also they support them to get access to social protection. And basically these experiences are forming the basis for the advocacy at national level for universal social protection floors. Yeah, please, let's see the video.
Pragati, you may run the video, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, as usual, it takes some time with the technique, but please take your time. Yeah. We cannot see, I believe. I think maybe Pradip, are you sharing your screen or I don't know?
No, I think Pragati is sharing her screen.
Okay. I know it happened all the time to me. Sharing the screen with Zoom is not easy. Can you try again? Hi, Salina. So,
Pragati, do you want me to try?
yeah,
okay.
now it's coming again.
Yeah, coming. Yeah, perfect.
त्यसपछि 1 वर्षको लागि 5 जनासम्मलाई स्वास्थ्य बिमा गर्छ नेपाल सरकारले। यो बिमा गरेपछि सरकारी हस्पिटलमा जस केही छुट हुन्छ, सबै त नभनौँ केही छुट हुन्छ। यो स्वास्थ्य बिमा सम्बन्धी कार्ड त बनाइन्छ, तर हस्पिटलमा जाँदाखेरि अब ठुलो लाइन हुन्छ के बिमा भन्नासाथ पैसा तिरेर लिने हो भने भट्टाभट दिन्छ। बिमा लाइन भन्नासाथ मेरै नातिको अपरेसन गर्ने बेलामा बिमा भनेको छ अहिले अपरेसन छ, बिमाको लागि चाहिँ सिस्टम चल्दैन भनेर औषधि दिएन। एकदम माथि अपरेसन गर्न चाहिँ सुरु भइरहेछ, त्यहाँ नदिएपछि त किन्न पनि पर्यो। यो समस्या चाहिँ समाधान हुनु पर्यो क्या। लाइन पनि धेरै हुन्छ अनि बिमा भन्नासाथ अलिकति अपहेली जस्तो क्या, सबैसँग पैसा हुन्छ भन्ने त छैन नि।
अनि गरिब भनेर आउँदैन होइन, यो चाहिँ सबैलाई लाग्ने, कुन बेला कसलाई लाग्छ भन्ने कुरा हुन्छ होइन। यसमा चाहिँ तपाईँको गरिब परिवारको व्यक्तिहरूलाई रोग लाग्दा चाहिँ नहुनेहरूलाई त यसै गाह्रो भयो कि होइन। स्वास्थ्य बिमा गर्नुको लागि त पैसा नै हुँदैन होइन, प्रायः जस्तो कति लिङ्ग वर्गका व्यक्तिहरू हुनुहुन्छ। अनि बिमा गरे त बापत पनि उनीहरूले रिन्यू गर्न पनि समस्या आइरहेको देखिन्छ। कतिपय त्यही 35 पनि नभएको कन्डिसन पनि देखिरहेको हुन्छौँ हामीले होइन। बिमामा पर्ने औषधिहरू पनि सकेको छ, तपाईँ बाहिरबाट लिइदिनु भन्ने जस्तो कुराहरू पनि सुनेँ मैले होइन। म
क्या दिक्कत हुआ आप इसके बारे में बताएं।
मेरा दिक्कत है कि ऑपरेशन करवाए कोई लाभ नहीं उठाए।
किस चीज का ऑपरेशन करा?
बरदाने को।
अच्छा, क्या हुआ था?
बरदाने मेरा सूजन आ गया था।
हाँ।
और 2 महीना ब्लीडिंग चालू।
अच्छा।
तो परिवार जो तंग के ले गया था, ऑपरेशन करवा दिए प्राइवेट में। कोई लाभ नहीं उठाए आप क्या?
ये कार्ड आपके पास था तो फिर क्यों नहीं लाभ आपने उठाया?
तो कैसे हम लोग घर आए तो क्या पता है? मेरा घर में पढ़ा लिखा नहीं है। कितना पैसा लिया? वहाँ तो लग गया 1.5 लाख रुपया।
1.5 लाख ये चीज
सर्विस तो कराए तो क्या रही? 15 दिन तो रख लिए हॉस्पिटल में तो बेड चारी है, तो होड़ा करेगा नहीं उतना खर्च।
बाद में आपने इसके लिए कहीं पे कोई पहल किया कि अगर ये कार्ड आपके पास है इसके तहत फ्री इलाज होता था?
कोई नहीं,
आपने डीएम को या फिर
कोई भी नहीं किया है। कोई
आप कहीं पे कोशिश की?
ना, कोई नहीं देखवे नहीं किया कार्ड में।
बंगलादेशमा गर्भवती महिलाको सुरक्षा कार्यक्रम मार्फत दलित तथा सीमांकित महिलाको स्वास्थ्य सुरक्षामा जोड दिएको छ।
দেখা হওয়ার পরে ওনারা আমার কিছু তথ্য বলেন আর কি কি কাগজপত্র লাগবে সেইগুলো বলি দেন। বলি দেওয়ার পরে আমি সেই কাগজপত্রগুলো নিয়ে একদিন অফিসে হাজির হই। হাজির হওয়ার পরে ওনারা আমার থেকে সেই কাগজপত্রগুলো নেন, নিয়ে অনলাইনে জমা দেন আর কি কি কাগজপত্র লাগবে সেগুলো আমারে বলি দেয়। বলি দেওয়ার পরে একদিন অফিস থেকে আমারে ডাক আসে, আমি সেই জায়গায় যাই। যাওয়ার পরে আমি সেই কাগজগুলো ওনাদের দিই আর ওনারা আমারে বলে একটা ব্যাংক অ্যাকাউন্ট খোলার জন্য। আমি সেই ব্যাংক অ্যাকাউন্টটা খুলি। খোলার পরে এখন প্রত্যেক 3 মাস অন্তর অন্তর আমি 2400 করে টাকা পাই।
Okay, so I think it's really important to have the voices of the people at the beginning. Thank you again to ADIF for preparing this. Pragati, do you want to explain, or is it fine now?
Yes, just a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Singo. We have just watched a short video by the Asia Dalit Rights Forum, which is the social justice task force of GCAP. We heard directly from Dalit community members from Nepal, India, Bangladesh about their experience. Also, although the governments have introduced different health protection schemes, many families still face barriers such as financial hardship, limited awareness, poor quality services, and discrimination when they try to access healthcare. I note here that access to quality healthcare is an essential pillar of universal social protection floors. The video also showed that positive change is possible. In Bangladesh, for example, ADRF's efforts have helped many Dalit mothers, especially the mothers, to access maternity benefits that they are previously unable to receive. Beyond Bangladesh also, ADRF is also working with communities in Nepal, India, and Pakistan to raise awareness, strengthen access to social protection programs, and ensure that more people are able to claim the healthcare and social protection benefits they are entitled to. The stories we have just heard tell us that achieving universal health coverage is not only about introducing health schemes, it is also about making sure that everyone, especially the most marginalized communities, can access them with dignity, without discrimination, and as part of a comprehensive universal social protection flows. Thank you.
Thank you, Pragati, for the explanation. Yeah, so we will hear now from the different people. I would request all the speakers to keep to around 7 minutes. everybody is invited to write questions or comments in the chat. We will see how much time we have at the end to discuss. Just to say again the framework, the big question for me is how actually the World Social Summit political declaration will be put into practice. And so we will hear from Christina Berndt. She's the head of the social policy unit of the ILO as part of the social protection department on this topic, how this is connected, how the Doha political declaration can be implemented at national level in regard to social protection. So Christina has published a lot, and she coordinates also the flagship social protection report of the ILO. So I guess many of you know this. If not, please have a look at it. This gives a really very good and deep insight in the situation of social protection. Please, Christina.
Yes, no, thank you so much, Ingo, and thank you also for sharing this very powerful video. I think that is it's a great way of starting this seminar by really hearing from the people, and also hearing that despite the policies that governments have already put in place, there's still sometimes challenges when it comes for people really to access the benefits in a very, very practical way, whether we speak of access to healthcare or whether we speak of cash benefits that provide income security. And we know that this sometimes is a very long process and it requires a lot of steps actually to get to a situation where everyone really has effective access. And I think the Doha political declaration and the outcome of the World Social Summit, I think that was a very critical part in reaffirming the universal right to social security and the role of universal social protection and including social protection floors. And while these commitments are not really new, I mean, we've already had the social protection floors recommendation, for example, adopted in 2012. But I think this political commitment at this level, and especially at that time, is very important. And it's good to see that indeed the outcome of Doha put a much stronger emphasis on social protection than was the case for Copenhagen. And I think this is really a key signal. And especially at this time where we're entering a very different area of social protection, where governments and countries more broadly face a very broad set of interrelated challenges, where kind of economic growth has slowed, labor markets are under pressure, fiscal space has become more constrained, debt levels have increased. Climate change is accelerating, the technological and demographic shifts have profound impacts on economies and societies, and also inequalities have widened in many parts of the world, and trust in institutions is under pressure. And I think these are not isolated challenges. They reinforce each other and can only be addressed through integrated policy responses. And I think social protection plays a very essential role in that respect, as part of the social fabric and in a way the social contract of societies. But we also know that what we have now is not yet sufficient. And we would need to shift and to move the needle in many ways. And let me just highlight 4 different points. I think the first point that I want to make is really to engender a shift in focus from poverty elevation to poverty prevention. I think it's too late if social policy come in when people are already in poverty. What we really need to
to seek is, in addition to lifting those who are already in poverty out of poverty, we need preventive policies that actually can protect people before they even fall into poverty, and guaranteeing income security and access to healthcare across the life course is really essential in that respect. And I think these forward-looking policies are really playing a key role in that. Secondly, we need a focus on rights-based institutionalized solutions through national social protection systems, which are based on principles of solidarity, sustainable and equitable finance, good governance, and social dialogue. And you have highlighted the very important role of social protection floors that guarantee access to at least basic income security and healthcare as a matter of right, and not just being contingent on economic performance or sometimes not very transparent proxy means testing mechanisms that we also find in many cases. And social protection floors are very essential in really guaranteeing what the human rights people call the minimum core content of the human right to social security, and providing the basis for progressively moving towards the full realization of the human right to social security for everyone. So the third point, which is linked to the first two, is really to pivot from fragmented, residual, and narrowly targeted safety nets to rights-based universal social protection systems that provide this comprehensive and adequate protection for all, including for those currently excluded. And I think one lesson from the repeated crisis over the recent years is that temporary programs cannot substitute for permanent institutions that we need. And I think this is highly relevant when we deal with climate-related shocks, demographic shifts, a changing labor market, and also more frequent crises. So building universal social protection systems, including the floors, therefore means investing in institutions that are rights-based and are part of a social protection system that accompanies people throughout the life course and adapts to changing situations. And these systems will need to be financed in a sustainable and equitable way, and usually from a combination of progressive contributions and taxations in line with the principles of risk sharing and solidarity. And I'll come back to that point. And the final point is really recognizing that social protection is not a residual policy area limited in a way to mopping up the fallouts of economic policy, but really an essential social infrastructure that works hand in hand with other economic and social policies, so including labor market and employment policies, labor protection, formalization policies, fiscal policies, health policies, care policies, and investment in essential services. And so the big question is really how that can be achieved in the context of tight and often further tightening fiscal space. And social protection is often considered as expenditure that is contingent on other priorities, as we can see in the current reform discussion in many countries. But if we really take the role of social protection as an essential social infrastructure seriously, we need to recognize its role in supporting economic resilience, social inclusion, and democracy. And so these cuts are really the wrong starting point. It's really looking into what are the costs of not investing in social protection in that way. So the ILO has worked, and I think many of you know the analysis on the financing gap, and I recognize that I need to speed up a bit. So really, it's important really to close those financing gaps. And I think looking at ways on the one hand, how countries have policy choices in expanding their fiscal space through different means, through progressive taxation, social security contributions, the formalization also of the economy, and other means. But we also need to recognize that the poorest countries really require also the international solidarity to support that. And this is why it's very essential also that the Doha Declaration especially connects with the agenda of the fourth International Conference on Financing for Development, which has pointed to a target of increasing social protection expenditure to support an increase in at least 2 percentage point increase in social protection coverage per year. And we've seen that for many countries that this is possible. And finally, I think also the discussions on the UN tax convention are very relevant in that respect. Also to recognize also the importance of a combination of taxation and social security contributions as an important source of the financing of social protection systems. So finally, let me just finish by highlighting that it's really just kind of highlighting again the point that I think the greatest legacy of this World Summit for Social Development is not necessarily the declaration itself, but the way how governments translate it into policies and real change for people, recognizing the role of universal social protection as part of this broader social infrastructure that enables societies to manage uncertainty, supports economic transformation, strengthens social cohesion, and reinvigorate social contract. And most importantly, and that brings me back to the video at the beginning, that it delivers for people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. I think you brought very good points and we learned. So we can build on this in the following points. Yeah, so we have Silvia Beals as the next speaker, representing the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors, which is a coalition of more than 100 civil society organizations and trade unions advocating for social protection floors. Silvia is also a member of different organizations, even a founding member of the stakeholder group on aging. She's also part of the Grey Panthers and of the GCAP constituency group on aging. So very happy to have you here, Silvia, and to hear your perspective, how the Doha Declaration in regard to social protection can be or should be implemented at national level.
Great. Thank you so much, Ingo, and greetings, everyone. It's a great meeting you've put on, and I want to say thank you too for that video, because it makes things real when we see really what the barriers are. And I think that's kind of what I want us to think about today, because together we can work on those barriers. So first of all, in terms of Doha, to follow Christina's very comprehensive paper, let's recall that the Copenhagen meeting was called a People's Summit, and the Doha Political Declaration builds on this. It brings a social pillar of development into full view, and it actually, in terms of Copenhagen, it led into the SDG process. So while existing issues, including poverty and full employment and social cohesion, were revisited, the declaration addressed, the Doha Declaration, are very important new concerns such as the care economy, artificial intelligence, and the digital divide, with social protection explicitly named as a major instrument to reduce inequalities and poverty, with the 25 or the 26 mentions. I'm not sure. Odile is clear it's 26. But the important thing is that the financing of country-led plans and strategies feature really strongly with this pledge for a minimum of 2% annual increase. We feel in the coalition that this is not ambitious enough, but it does serve as a basis for follow-up at national level. And the pledge to invest in flaws in policies in line with International Labour Organization recommendations and agreed standards is really important. And that is in the Doha Declaration, para 29. I'm a bit in favour of being clear about the text. And I said that in Doha itself to civil society meetings there, because the declaration builds on existing agreements and it rests on the body of international human rights law. And this is a win. We said this in GCAP in the current geopolitical context. The monitoring and follow-up arrangements built into the declaration are about monitoring what exists already, and it can be used for further work on social justice and inequality. And really importantly, I think we have to use this to hold governments to account now and beyond 2030. The commitments in Doha, interestingly, are to be taken forward nationally. So they're context specific, but in line with commitments reached, including in Seville last year, and most recently at the high-level political forum, where Doha is welcomed and the commitments to be taken forward. It's just got a line or two, but it's there. And let's not forget that the global reviews and country analyses of social protection still show us that access to the floor is still largely the preserve of the global north, with exceptions, with the discriminations, including for Dalit people of the global north and migrants and so on, but most of Africa in the figures lagging far behind. This is a scandal of inequality between North and South in plain sight. So what's being done nationally and what must still be done to make progress? In the first place, let's recognize there is progress. It's great to see Peter here from Kenya, who has been talking about progress. There are brave governments out there doing their best, but overall, not enough or fast enough. So we need to name and face these elephants in the room, which are not going away. Christina named them too. I can name them again. Availability of finance, political will, demographics, aging everywhere, plus increasing and decreasing birth rates, climate shocks, militarization, decrease in development spend, conflict, movements of people across borders, rise of informality, increasing inequality, repressive state apparatus working to disenfranchise citizens. And I think perhaps we don't recognize this enough, fear of people to be registered for benefits because they're afraid of their governments. But with all challenges, there are opportunities. The Doha Declaration asks for a review of progress every 5 years globally and asks for annual national and regional reviews. The Commission for Social Development will conduct these annual reviews, and the first global one is in 2031. It reinforces the importance of our attention to the strong follow-up and accountability mechanisms which need to be in place, which maybe not be in place, but we should think about how we get them in place. And the 2030 SDG Summit will give information on how far behind we are and what to do next. So some of the factors, seems to me, to overcome are data. Do we know who and where is receiving what and how? Who is still excluded and why? What is being done to count and to reach them? What are distribution methods? Are systems joined up between government departments, between local government and community and NGOs at the local level? So the video at the beginning gave us a hint of this. It's a really important points being made there. Does data collection include community-generated methods, which we heard in the video, qualitative information, as well as that collected by statistical commissions, and is therefore quantitative? And importantly, is the data available, transparent, open to us, open to improvements? And as Christina said, what is the real cost to governments, both of action and inaction? And secondly, related to data and the rights question, can we not use the human rights framework more intentionally to assess and monitor progress on Doha, social protection and the SDGs, working, for example, with the tools being produced by the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights to do just this? But there's another factor which is much more difficult. How much or how little people believe in and have knowledge of human rights and of social protection and the guarantees of the floor. Again, the video touched on this in terms of income and access to health, that these are our rights and it's an obligation of government to make it happen. Which brings me to my final point, to remind us that the delivery of social protection floors at national level, we need to be clear in our minds and with our governments that it is an obligation of government, national and local, to deliver. It is not a whim or act of charity, but a set of rights which those in the global north take for granted and which are denied to millions in the global south, who perhaps don't know that it is their right. So it's therefore up to us, we the peoples, wherever we are, individually and collectively, to call for transparency and accountability from our governments on these issues. The reports on Doha due at the Commission for Social Development 2027 are an opportunity for us, for our input and questioning. We must ask that these reports are honest, that they are clear on gaps as well as progress, and lead to solid advances and partnerships, including with us, that offer solutions. Can we, as civil society, produce our own reports on Doha, as we do at the high-level political forum, a kind of Doha citizens VNR process? So finally, just to say, colleagues, that 2027 is a crucial year. We must organize for it, bring more evidence, our voices, act in unison, because in the end, unity is strength. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and over to you, Ingo.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Very good, important points, and also inspiring for the way forward. So you have mentioned several elephants in the room. So so it's a whole how do you call this for elephants? A whole group. I think one of the big one is the financing part, and Christina also mentioned austerity, which is in most countries of the world, governments are cutting spending. So the F54, the Financing for Development 4 conference in Seville was, of course, very important to discuss this. So the two conferences were quite interconnected last year. Therefore, we are happy to have Patricia Miranda from Latindad here. She is a director for advocacy and heads a team for the new international financial architecture. So that's really working on these topics, whether it's debt, whether it's also the tax convention you mentioned, Christina. So Patricia, very good you're here. So can you tell us about the connections between the F54 summit and the World Social Summit and the impact on social spending?
Thank you.
Half a minute.
Yeah.
Becky, this slot was yours, but Patricia has to leave. So we just requested her to complete, and then you can come in, Becky. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think it makes also sense if we hear first from, let's say, the global perspective, and then we hear from the national. I mean, it could have been the other way around as well, but it makes also sense like this. Yeah, please, Patricia.
Thank you so much, Ingo, Pradeep, Becky, and Khalid. Well, I would like to start by saying that investment in social protection, more than spending, is a key driver to reduce poverty and inequalities. Nearly 3.8 billion people around the world still lack any form of social protection, and 2 billion workers are employed in the informal economy. So the financing for development outcomes after Seville has three key points in terms of social protection. First, it says that to take action to combat inequalities within and among countries, including through investment in social protection systems and human development, and through enhanced international cooperation. So this is an important paragraph that it's already agreed in the Compromiso de Sevilla. The second one is that the Compromiso says they will encourage countries to integrate financing of social protection systems and policies, including floors and policies in line with International Labour Organization recommendations. They say they will provide support to developing countries that aim to increase social protection. And the third one that I want to mention is that they call to the international community to support developing countries in ensuring predictable, adequate, and interrupted funding on appropriate terms of social protection and other essential social spending during shocks and crises. They also mentioned that, for instance, the International Monetary Fund support should include social protection and social spending criteria in their macroeconomic adjustment programs. So the outcomes of the FFD4 and the World Social Summit, in my views, are deeply linked, as the FFD4 focuses on mobilizing the resources required to actually achieve the social development goals set by the summit. I would like to mention some key issues specifically from the FFD outcome. One is the reforming of the international financial architecture, and a change in the governance of the architecture is highly needed, has been demanded by several countries from the South mainly, but also some from the North, and of course from civil society organizations. For us, this is crucial because it would lead to have a global economic rules that are based and decided by all countries sitting at the same table. The main call from CSOs in this regard is that what we need is to have decisions made under an approach one country, one vote, instead of $1, one vote. A second important point from FFD4 is that it included an important paragraph on going beyond GDP. This means the importance of using other metrics that complement or actually go beyond what is gross domestic product, including a multidimensional vulnerability index. The current metrics hide so many other problems that countries have, and they fail to capture the full complexity of our country's realities, vulnerabilities, and of course, our needs. Three, it's the domestic resource mobilization. There was an agreement to shift to progressive taxation to finance universal social protection, as has been mentioned, to curb illicit financial flows and explore the taxation of high net worth individuals to reduce inequalities. Even more African countries and the G77 delegates also reaffirmed a strong support for the UN Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation, emphasizing the need for more inclusive and equitable global tax rules. This would allow to increase tax revenues, reduce inequalities, and close social protection gaps. Four, I would like to mention here also the agreement on debt and debt sustainability. This agreement establishes an intergovernmental process to provide within the UN to provide recommendations on debt architecture reform, It also includes the creation of the borrowers platform, the implementation of responsible borrowing and lending principles, the regulation of credit rating agencies, the implementation of automatic debt pause clauses, and debt transparency, among the main ones. This would allow to reduce the debt burden that our countries currently have, and also promote and make more feasible to have access to concessional financing, with an additional criteria of debt sustainability that is not based only in the capacity of payment and austerity measures, but to have different criteria, such as guaranteeing social protection in the long term. A country should be sustainable if this is possible to make. And the last point on the key issues that I want to highlight is the official development assistance, the international development cooperation. And it is really a shame that the ODA are we can say it's a unique type of resources in terms of the availability to finance projects and programs to reduce poverty and inequalities that other sources of funding would not do. I mean, because to reduce poverty and inequalities, it's not always profitable. So it's the decline of ODA. It's scandalous, and many southern regions, for many southern regions, this is a matter of life. ODA is a lifeline. So international development cooperation has a debt with developing countries. We keep calling for developed countries to fulfill their commitments on ODA, and it's not a matter of charity. It is a matter of justice. So these are the key points that I find it more relationship between FFD4 and social protection. But I would like also to bring more linkages. We need to debunk several bias over social expenditure. For instance, that GDP returns of social investment are not under consideration in terms of their impact on poverty reduction, on increasing tax revenues collection, on debt sustainability, and contributive social security. So when a country invests in human capital, education, health, care system, social protection, it increases the capacities for more labor opportunities. The equation that would be important to highlight is that more labor incomes means less poverty, and that means more consumption and more taxes. So greater public investment would have more jobs creation. We need to debunk that only infrastructure investment generates returns, considering that infrastructure does not even consider care infrastructure, for instance. Human capital, a current expenditure, has definitely higher returns than only physical infrastructure. And we need to debunk that social investment impacts should be measured only as a figure, a number of people benefited, because it also has economic returns that make that investment return for the country itself, for instance, as increasing tax collection revenues. To close, my final message is that financing for development could be more ambitious. It was not ambitious enough for the context of multiple crises that we are living in, but it has some windows of opportunities, as I just mentioned. But its implementation have challenges, challenges that are mainly political will. We have been listening in several spaces that there are not enough resources. We have been listening that we need to do more with less. But when at the same time we can see that there are more resources going to finance war, for instance. So it has huge challenges in terms of implementing these agreements. And the financing for development and the World Social Summit provide a shift in the global narrative of social spending. And this is what we need to highlight more, treating it not merely as a cost, but as an investment to reduce poverty and inequality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patricia. I think you made it very clear, the connection to the different topics related to global justice, and therefore I also want to highlight that the campaign for economic justice is really very much related to the social protection, the social spending, and therefore we also will do a webinar coordinated actually by Latindat 1 year after the F54 conference. So that will happen in about 2 weeks' time on 30th July at 1 p.m. GMT. So probably you got already the information, but we will send more details. As Patricia will need to leave soon, if you have questions to her, please write in the chat now. We will now come to basically the same topic, but in a more focused on a country. So Becky Malai will explain what that means in the context of the Philippines. Becky is Director for Advocacy and Development Cooperation in PRM, which is the Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement, which is also coordinating GCAP Philippines. Becky has leading roles in Asia civil society and also global civil society. Among different positions, she was also the co-chair of GCAP for several years. So good to have you here, Becky. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much, Ingo. Thank you to everyone who shared. I feel like I can't say anything much anymore because everybody has already given us very good examples of how social protection should actually be funded and financed by government. No, I think the link between financing for development and social protection has been established by the previous speakers quite well. So I'd just like to share what we have been doing in the Philippines in terms of our campaign for social protection. What we have been doing is engaging government very tightly in the way that we're trying to make sure that civil society organizations actually have a say and a voice in government agencies doing all of this schemes for implementing social protection programs. No? In the Philippines, the social protection sector accounts for about 9.8% of the national budget. No? And out of the social services allocation, the budget is about giving conditional cash transfers amounting to about 113 billion pesos, and then 63.9 billion pesos for direct services and grants for individuals and families in difficult circumstances. No? So apart from the conditional cash transfers, there is the AIX, no? And then 51.9 billion for the social pension program for indigent senior citizens. So there are very good laws in terms of protection for senior citizens, and what matters a lot is the universal health care program, because as the demographics really shift to the older sector, aging to an aging population, there will be more demand for indigent senior citizens to be given all this pensions and also universal healthcare protection. No, coverage. No, right now, there have been a lot of increases, definitely amongst those who get sick in terms of out-of-pocket expenses. It's increasing despite the fact that there is a law for universal health care, because universal health care for us is just universal health coverage, no? Meaning we are entitled to what we call the PhilHealth insurance. So it's still lacking because the cost of healthcare is very, very expensive. And it's been a struggle for a lot of families to really get into more open and better access to all of these services by the government. So how much of the social protection programs are actually funded from taxation? It's not really big, no, in terms of taxation. The revenues are not enough to cover most of the budget. And now there is the budget deliberation going on for 2027, but in 2026, government budget is largely funded also by debt, no? So it's a recurring problem in terms of how social protection gets funded, because most of the social services that are needed by individuals or citizens are really funded from debt, no? So we're unique in all of the world because we're a country where debt servicing is actually mandated. So we cannot really do much in terms of restructuring our debt payments, because there is an automatic appropriations for the debt, no, from the budget. So if this deficit continues, then we really don't know how to manage all of this. But civil society organizations, by the way, it is ironic because we have just been declared by the World Bank as as a high level middle income country, no? So we're in the higher level now. So in terms of ODA, that means reduced ODA, and also FDI, foreign direct investments from various countries. And we achieved this status ironically because we are sustainable in terms of paying our debt, no? So the criteria for debt sustainability really needs to be revised, as Patricia has said earlier. It shouldn't be incumbent on being able to finance our debt or pay our debt or repay our debt because it is in the law. So it's a national struggle, but it of course impacts on the way our country is able to manage its fiscal policy, no? So as of now, we have been very active in terms of civil society inputs in terms of policies. We have been very active in the struggle for making sure that all of this financial architecture is actually reinvented. So we have been engaging government since a long time ago. You know that we have the Freedom from Debt Coalition since more than 30 years ago established, and quite strongly lobbying government for the reforms that are needed to for the financial architecture to serve the people better. But I'm not quite optimistic about how quickly the changes will happen, because take for example the kind of social services that people actually need. Water and electricity, water and power are actually privatized, and regulation of these essential services are not very strict, no? So it's the corporations that actually profit a lot from all of these operations of essential services that do not give the proper service to the poor, and therefore the demand for social protection increases because the gaps in terms of being able to earn properly. We have a very informal worker sector in the Philippines. No, labor is not organized in the way they could be more vigilant in demanding for their rights. The rights-based approach is very, very important for all of us to be able to ensure that government delivers on the services, and yet it has not happened. We're quite strong in terms of pushing what the principles should be applied, no? But we have not been successful in the way that inequality is actually addressed, no? The poverty index is still very high. It has improved in some from 2015, but we are very vulnerable, and I like the idea of really, in terms of data, being able to push for multi-dimensional and multi-generational gathering of data in terms of vulnerability. The PSA, the Philippine Statistics Authority, has actually started doing the monitoring and the inclusion of multidimensional poverty, so linking education, social services like health, into the poverty index. But policies to address all of those still need to be pushed for. Civil society has been very strong in terms of pushing for all the social protection measures. And the DSWD, which is the Department of Social Welfare and Development, which is the main agency or ministry in your cases, that is in charge of social protection, has been quite open, no? So in some ways, we are able to push at least the issue of access first, no? For our constituents and coalition members, no? So we continuously push for that, but just the same, we are very aware of how we want to link our vulnerabilities into the indices that are being put there, and even included in the new indicators for the SDGs, because there are ongoing reviews of the SDGs indicators, and we have just adopted in the national stakeholders platform on the SDGs, new indicators and targets for SDGs. So it's a whole approach. It's a whole integrated approach. It's not just social protection. It's really pushing for the improvement of social services and also budgeted for in terms of financing, and making sure that the constitutional rights that are there to protect our citizens are actually implemented. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this was really interesting to see how this works and also the difficulties, but how do you connect all the different struggles which are interconnected yeah, and how to continue this work for a long time. So thank you. We will stay in Asia. So we have now Katinka Weinberger from UNSCAP. UNSCAP is the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. Katinka is the chief of the Sustainable Socio-Economic Transformation section. Is that right? And we will hear about the connection with climate change. As you know, there's a big impact of climate change, and the question how social protection can support resilience. Yeah, over to you, Katinka.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much, and also thank you for the video that so nicely set the scene for the session and the previous speakers, which shared a large number of really interesting insights. In my intervention, I'll take a slightly different angle, and I'll address, as you already said, Ingo, the adverse impacts of climate change This is also recognized in the Doha Political Declaration as negatively impacting social development. And I think ultimately we're all reminded every single day that climate change is creating new forms of risks for everybody, in fact, but of course, especially so for persons in vulnerable situations. These climate risks relate to sudden onset events such as floods, typhoons, cyclones, the heat waves that we're currently experiencing in Europe. But they also refer to slow onset environmental change that is perhaps less well explicitly recognized in the social protection literature, including biodiversity loss, land degradation, reduction in soil productivity, and the impacts that will have ultimately on breaking down food systems. And climate change related risks also relate to the transitions that are required by economies to move towards low carbon economies. So social protection can and has a key role to play in responding to these different types of risks. And that's also reflected in the Doha Political Declaration. But I think we also need to acknowledge that social protection systems were not primarily designed to address climate-related risks and livelihoods, especially of persons in vulnerable situations are disrupted in many ways that social protection systems cannot easily address. This includes because through climate-related risks, entire communities are being affected all at once. This is because of climate-related risks, communities are gradually worn down. And also because people working in the informal sector, particularly in sectors that are most affected by climate, for example, agriculture or construction workers or food vendors, most often not covered by social protection systems at all, right? Because they're in the informal economy. So how can social protection address climate risk? And in our research at SCAP, we distinguish 6 different functions. I think the one that is most often related or looked at in relationship to climate and social protection is the response that it enables to shocks by providing households with hopefully timely access to emergency and non-contributory transfers. This can help households to cope with climate or economic shocks and hence can prevent them from using negative coping strategies such as reducing essential consumption or taking their children out of school or selling productive assets. In relation to the response to shocks, we often refer to shock responsive social protection. So this means delivering responses to a sudden crisis by increasing the number of those who are receiving the support, or by increasing the amount that is being provided, or by using social protection delivery systems to provide the support. Then another function of social protection that is relatively well described and understood in the literature is, of course, the reduction of vulnerabilities, because households are provided a predictable source of income security. Social protection can help reduce economic vulnerabilities and therefore strengthen household resilience. And right, that's what we're talking about in the context of climate resilience. But there are other functions as well, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about them. First, the support to just transitions and climate action. And this is because social protection can help to offset negative social and economic impacts of climate mitigation and adaptation policies, because it can support workforce transitions through skills developments, through reskilling, by providing income security, and overall because it may facilitate the social acceptance of climate policies. Then another function, especially in the context of climate resilience, is strengthening adaptive capacity of households, because social protection can build the resilience of households before shocks occur by promoting income diversification or savings or asset accumulation. it reduces the vulnerability of households and therefore limits their respective need to use their assets during a time of crisis. And then social protection can also explicitly contribute to climate and environmental objectives. Yeah, we know that well-designed social protection programs can have a direct contribution to reduce emissions, to sustainable natural resource management and ecosystem restoration, including through public work programs or other forms of incentives. For example, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program in India demonstrates that longer-term participation of participants enable them to build their own climate resilience by developing climate resilient infrastructure and also by strengthening their household resilience through investment into productive activities. And then a relatively new and emerging area that is currently being discussed is the opportunity of social protection to address loss and damage. So talking about situations where the impact of climate change can no longer be avoided, where social protection can play a role in providing income support or relocation or settlement assistance to households. Now, to make full use of these array of functions that social protection can play, of course, we need a stronger reflection of the climate risks when they're being designed. And that requires is much better understanding and coordination between climate and social protection policymakers. In that respect, we see a promising path forward in the Asia-Pacific region, where a couple of countries weighted social protection into their nationally determined contributions. So that's a really great start to facilitate coordination by different ministries, because it explicitly acknowledges the role that social protection can play towards moving an economy towards a low carbon and climate resilient economy. But beyond the integration and beyond stronger coordination, what we also observe as a continued lack of capacity to identify and forecast climate risks and emerging climate vulnerabilities, especially those related to health, food security, and income security. Having such information available can feed into early warning systems and other climate and disaster-related mechanisms. But what it requires is interoperability of databases across different line ministries, and also at national, provincial, and local level, as well as across different thematic areas. And here is where we still see a real gap with different ministries owning different data sets, identifying different vulnerable groups that don't speak to each other. So that's an area where we see that more action is required. And then the third area where we see a need for more and continued action is leveraging climate finance. We discuss and we talk about loss and damage funds, multilateral climate funds, green bonds, but provide for opportunities to direct them towards social protection actions. At this point, less than 10% of climate finance actually goes towards towards social protection. So that's an area where we see more effort is required. Just to quickly say that at ESCA, we're actively engaged in this area. We're actively engaged in contributing to building understanding through our CRISP initiative, which stands for Climate Resilient and Inclusive Social Protection. And since you were asking earlier on what is actually happening in response to the Doha Political Declaration. Under this initiative, we work with a large number of governments in the region to better understand how climate change affects people and their livelihoods, how social protection systems can respond, and also how climate and social protection communities can build stronger connections to each other. So in closing, I would just like to emphasize that clearly, climate resilience does not only depend on social protection. Other things matter as well. Infrastructure matters, technology, early warning systems. But having strong social protection systems in place is a very important mechanism to build resilience of people. And what I would also like to emphasize that from an efficiency perspective, from a financing perspective, it does not make sense to design special systems that can respond to every type of climate event. That's technically demanding, that's expensive. So what is very important is to invest into inclusive, universal social protection that is built on strong contributory, non-contributory pillars. And I think that's one of the most concrete things that we can all do to build resilience in the face of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katinka. I think this was a very important contribution to understand better the relationships. And I just want to mention, if you have not seen, that also the ILO report on social protection, the World Social Protection Report 24/26 is on this connection actually with climate action and the just transition. So Christina has posted it, the link in the chat. Good. So do we have Tirivangani Mutazu from Aphrodite? I cannot see from the names, but maybe you are here with another name. Or another colleague from Aphrodite. So the last topic is actually the relationship with the impact of the debt crisis, in particularly in Africa, and also the role of the IMF and World Bank in relation to the implementation of the World Social Summit, which is of course very relevant, as we have heard about the impact of debt already a few times, and the relationship to austerity. But I believe we don't have.
We don't have him.
Yeah, as we also don't have so much time. I mean, I think we still have only a few minutes. There were several questions in the chat, but maybe we can have one or two questions if someone has. If you can raise your hand. So maybe there's so much information, and often there's no time actually at the end. Also, we have very little time. This is as it happens often in the webinars like this. But okay, I think, Pradip, did you raise your hand? Yeah, please.
Yes, because nobody is asking. I really have a question. Okay, Sylvia.
Okay, now we have Sylvia and David. Okay, good.
So quickly, it's a very conceptual question, Christina and other experts. It's an established theory. I have been reading it for last 10 years that social protection, rising social protection will address poverty and inequality. I can understand it addresses poverty, it's clear. Does it actually reduce inequality? Because in last 10 years, I have seen social protection rising, but inequality is simultaneously rising. So can you explain it, or you want to revisit that theory?
Okay, interesting question. Thank you. Let's collect Sylvia.
Hi. Well, really, my question was a more general one to the group about what we do next, because clearly data monitoring all these questions, including the last one that Pradeep asked, what Becky was saying going on in the Philippines, you know, and the question of beyond GDP to measure progress, plus the creation of the vulnerability index, which is now referenced in the high-level political forum outcome document. How are we going to organize so that we hold our governments to account at the national level for what they have promised to do? And if there's anything coming out of this meeting, it would be something about that we sort of agree together to work together.
Hello, Prof.
to bring these concerns to bring these concerns to, to the global forum, and that GCAP and the Global Coalition and others on this call work with the UN agencies to make this happen. So that was really my thought, and I wondered what other people thought about that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we will definitely work on that. So we have David Ugolo. If you can unmute. So we are now almost at the end. I would request you that we can continue a few minutes, but I would like now to close the list of speakers, but we will continue a few more minutes. I hope most of you can stay. So David, please. Can you unmute? Then we go to Zia first.
Yeah, thank you, Ingo. Very quick question. I may not be able to listen the response of my question, but to me, because I have another meeting, unfortunately, for concerning C20. But my quick question, very interesting webinar to all the speakers, especially the speakers who are from the global north. This ODA cut is being done, and in some of the global southern countries, mostly the social protection schemes were dependent upon the ODA and bilateral granting to the civilian governments or whatever the governments in the region. So this is one, and these social protection schemes are severely affecting, particularly in Pakistan, where some of the social protection schemes are really dependent upon ODA, and some of them are also being funded through the heavy debts. So the debt is also funding the social protection scheme. So in such circumstances, how we can actually sustain social protection? One, the second thing is that in most of the global northern countries, the phenomena of domestic resource mobilization and private financing is being highlighted in our conversations. And they are not talking about the state funding and resource mobilization through taxing. The tax money is being utilized for their own purposes, whatever, war purposes and the others. But on the other hand, they are now pushing us to think about the private financing and also think about the domestic resource mobilization in the global southern countries. So in that circumstances, I think that the first thing that would be under attack would be social protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Zia. Then we go to Odile.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment. I'm stepping back as Sylvia did. I've listened with great interest to everything that has been said, and I realize that we are still in the mode of how to achieve universal social protection, and we still treat it as a residual area of investment after everything else. My concern is, how do we move? I mean, and this is despite all the good words at Doha and the achievements that we've achieved maybe in the rhetoric regarding social protection. So the question is, how do we move from where we are now, where we're still defending the investments in social protection, to pointing out that social protection is an engine for social development, and it's a fundamental engine, that it's an end, not a means, and that the benefits to social development are a major means themselves to achieving equal economic development, one that is really distributed equally. We are still having to overcome a lot of obstacles to achieve this. And I do want to mention that, just stepping back and looking at how we still treat social development, I mean, basically universal social protection, social development at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Odile, for an important point. Then Georgina, so you need to choose the English if you don't understand Spanish. Yeah, please, Georgina.
Hola, mucho gusto, un excelente foro. Una pregunta concreta, ¿cuáles serían los retos en orden de prioridad que debemos asumir la sociedad civil para lograr la protección social en el contexto actual? Gracias.
Thank you. Good. So we have basically the David Ugolo who raised his hand. I don't know whether you can unmute and speak. Okay, if not, I would like, and we cannot invite all the speakers to answer. I would like to invite Christina Bern to answer maybe the question of Pradeep and others if you want. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, no, thanks a lot. I feel that we have little time, but I think Pradeep, your question about inequality is really a very important one. And I mean this opens a whole other set of questions, but just to maybe provide some reflections in a nutshell. And indeed, I mean, looking at the different, also the different dimensions of inequality. I mean, one dimension, certainly income inequality, and looking at the way how social protection can reduce income inequality. But I think it's also important not just look at the horizontal, at the vertical reduction of income inequality, which is very closely also linked with the reduction and the prevention of poverty, but also thinking very much on about horizontal forms of inequality. And there was a question earlier in the chat relating especially to women's rights. And I think looking at gender inequality is certainly one important dimension on that. But also looking into other types of inequalities, looking into intersecting inequalities is an important one. And I think this is really an area where I think there could still be much more research. I think there we know a lot, but I think this is an area where we still need to learn more. But I think it's important for us also to look into that question. And well, I think I'll stop here. There was a lot of other interesting questions, but I think we'll have little time.
Okay, we need to look more into this. So as I said, we cannot have every person to answer, but if you think there's any specific you want to answer, we can have one more person. No, I believe the questions on the way forward, those are really important, and we will not be able to answer this now, but we will need to discuss. And I think the participation here, we had more than 100 people. That is a good sign of interest, and we need to build on that. So from all kind of groups, of course, civil society, but also I saw people from academia, from governments. So that's good. That's also somehow what I can feel at the HLPF, but yeah, I think we need to move this forward. I mean, the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors has their leading role. As GCAP, we are part of it, and we want to contribute. So you have seen the different layers here. So I think we will discuss this question. I want to thank first now all the presenters for your very good presentations. It was really very good quality. Thanks a lot that you could join, that you prepared. I also would like to thank the interpreters. So that is very helpful to have the interpretation. I'd like to thank especially my colleagues Pradeep and Pragati for all the preparation. Maybe can give a clap, virtual clap. And I like to thank all the participants for your time and interest, and of course all the 23 co-organizers. That's also important to do this together. So one of the co-organizers is the Heinrich Bölf Stiftung Foundation in Washington, D.C., which is partnering with us for different events at HLPF. So I would like to invite the program director for the Global Dialogue Program, Mariama Balde, to say the closing words. Thank you.
Thank you, Inge. Well, thank you so much. There are so many things to say, but I will make it short because we have little time. But yeah, thank you to all our speakers and for all the contributions and to everybody who joined us. And the discussions has reminded us that universal social protection is not simply a social policy; it's an investment in dignity, equality, resilience, and sustainable development. I really liked the video. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. It was a powerful testimony of grassroots communities. And Inge, you talked about the elephant in the room. The discussions also highlighted that financing remains at the heart of this agenda. And the commitments reflected in the Doha Declaration provide important opportunities to advance social protection as a fundamental pillar of sustainable development. But commitments must now be translated into concrete action, adequate public investment, and policy choices that place people at the center. I would say this conversation does not end here. Today's event is another step in building stronger alliances, sharing knowledge across regions, and advancing collective advocacy for universal social protection. And yeah, I would say, it's essential for developing equitable and lasting solutions to today's interconnected challenges. And so, yeah, I will close with thanking you all speakers, partners, and participants for your engagement and commitment. And we look forward to continue this important conversation. Yeah, have a nice rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye. Bye-bye.